What if the key to unlocking a future you never dreamed of was hidden in a past you never knew? For one waitress, struggling to keep her head above water, a single, ordinary object from her mother's life changed everything. This is a story about a simple silver ring, a call to an unknown history, and a test of character so demanding it could either shatter a lifetime of resilience or forge a new destiny. The stale air of the Greasy Spoon diner hung thick with the scent of fried onions and burnt coffee. For Alara, it was the smell of survival. At 27, her life was a repeating loop of refilling ketchup bottles, wiping down sticky tables, and forcing a smile for customers who rarely saw her as more than a pair of hands. Every dollar from her tip jar was a tiny soldier sent to fight the losing war against her mother's mounting medical bills. Her mother, lost in the fog of dementia, resided in a facility that cost more per month than Alara made in 3. Hope was a luxury she couldn't afford. He walked in just as the evening rush was dying down, a specter of wealth in a place that had never seen it. His suit was tailored, dark wool that probably cost more than her rent for the year, and his face was a mask of cold indifference. He chose a booth in the corner, the worn vinyl sighing under his weight. Alara grabbed a menu and a glass of water, her practiced smile already in place. "Welcome to the Spoon. What can I get for you?" He didn't look at her, his gaze fixed on a crack in the Formica tabletop. "Coffee. Black." His voice was low and gravelly, a sound that belonged in a boardroom, not a diner. Alara poured the coffee, her movements efficient and weary. He took a sip and recoiled slightly, his lip curling in disgust. "This is dreadful." "It's fresh," she said, her smile faltering. "It's sludge," he corrected, pushing the cup away. "Is there anything here that is actually edible?" The insult stung, another small cut in a day full of them. She took a breath, holding on to the last frayed thread of her professionalism. "The pie is homemade." "Covered it. It was my mother's." He stared, his eyes wide, tracing the floral pattern as if seeing a ghost. The ruthless billionaire, a man known in the papers as Alistair Vance, looked utterly broken. He slowly raised his gaze to meet hers, truly seeing her for the first time. The silence stretched, thick with a tension she couldn't possibly understand. "Leave this place," he said, the words coming out rough, raw. "Leave this place and come to my office tomorrow morning, Vance Tower, 9 a.m. Tell me everything you know about that ring." He pulled a sleek card from his wallet and slid it across the table. On it was a single name and a private number. "Don't be late." He stood, dropped a $100 bill next to his untouched coffee, and walked out without another word, leaving Alara standing in the sudden, deafening quiet, her world tilted on its axis. The next morning, Alara stood before Vance Tower, a steel and glass monolith that pierced the clouds, feeling like a sparrow at the foot of a mountain. The $100 bill was tucked safely in her pocket, a surreal talisman from a baffling encounter. She had barely slept, her mind racing with 1,000 questions. Who was this man? And why did her mother's simple ring affect him so deeply? Desperation was a powerful motivator. The money he'd left was a week's worth of groceries, but the unspoken promise in his eyes felt like something far greater and far more dangerous. She gave her name to the security guard in the marble-clad lobby, expecting to be dismissed. Instead, his eyes widened slightly, and he spoke into his wrist. "Ms. Hayes is here." A moment later, a woman in a sharp suit appeared and led her to a private elevator. The ride was silent and swift, ascending into the sky. The doors opened directly into a sprawling penthouse office. One entire wall was a window, offering a godlike view of the city below, a city that, for Ilara, had only ever been a landscape of struggle. Alistair Vance stood by the window, his back to her. He was in another immaculate suit, but today the rigid set of his shoulders of polished wood, a barrier between their two worlds. What was his name? Your father. I don't know. My mother's maiden name was Hayes. I have her name. She never spoke of him. There are no pictures, no letters, nothing. He leaned forward, his gaze fixed on the chain at her neck. May I see it? Hesitantly, Ilara lifted the chain over her head and passed it to him. He took it with a reverence that startled her. His fingers, long and elegant, traced the floral pattern. For a moment, she saw the mask crack again, a flicker of profound, ancient pain in his eyes. I need to know more, he said, his voice quiet but firm. I need to verify the history of this ring. It is of great importance to me. He slid the ring back across the desk. I want to offer you a proposition. I will hire you as a temporary personal assistant. The salary will be more than enough to cover your mother's care and your own expenses. Your only job will be to assist me in this investigation. You will answer my questions and help me find any documents or records that might exist from your mother's past. He named a figure that made Ilara's head spin. It was more than she earned in 5 years. Why? She asked, suspicion warring with overwhelming relief. Why are you doing this? Let's just say I am a collector of rare and valuable things, he said, his emotional walls firmly back in place. And that ring may be the rarest of them all. He slid a checkbook from his drawer and wrote out an advance, the ink flowing in a confident script. The amount on the check could clear her mother's debt completely. Your employment begins now. My head of staff will arrange for your things to be moved from your apartment to a corporate suite. You will need to be available at all times. It was insane. It was a deal with a man who looked at her like she was a puzzle he had to solve, not a person. But as she looked at the check, she didn't see him. She saw her mother resting peacefully, free from the threat of being moved to a state facility. She saw her office without knocking, a man in his early 30s with a smile that was all teeth and no warmth. He was handsome in a predatory way, and he radiated the same air of entitled wealth as his uncle, but without Vance's quiet, brooding intensity. So, you're the new charity case, he said, leaning against the doorframe. He looked her up and down, his eyes lingering in a way that made her skin crawl. I'm Marcus, Alistair's nephew. And you are? Ilara Hayes, she said, standing up, trying to project a confidence she didn't feel. Ilara, he repeated, tasting the name. My uncle has many eccentricities, but plucking a waitress from a greasy spoon and giving her an office next to his is a new one. You must be very special. The insinuation was clear and ugly. Your uncle hired me to assist him with a personal project, she said stiffly. A personal project, Marcus chuckled. Is that what he's calling it? Listen, Ilara, I run the international division of this company. I'm the one who holds this empire together while he sits up here brooding. I know how he operates. He gets obsessed with things, and then, when he's done, he discards them. Don't get too comfortable. His visit was the first crack in her fragile new reality. Over the next few days, he became a constant, unnerving presence. He would appear in her office, asking pointed questions about her duties. He'd make comments in front of other staff members, referring to her as the Cinderella Project, designed to humiliate her. He went out of his way to point out her cheap shoes or the way she was unfamiliar with the ridiculously complex coffee machine in the executive lounge. He was trying to drive her out, to make her feel so small and out of place that she would run back to the world she came from. One afternoon, Vance called her into his office. He'd tasked her with organizing a set of old, disorganized files for a defunct subsidiary. It was tedious, pointless work, and she suspected it was just a way to keep her busy. As she was explaining her progress, Marcus entered. Hot surge of anger. He had sabotaged her work. It was a petty, cruel power play. She looked at Vance, expecting to see dismissal in his eyes, expecting to be cast out. But instead, she saw him watching Marcus, a flicker of deep-seated suspicion in his gaze. He seemed less interested in the corrupted file than in his nephew's eagerness to present it. "Leave it, Marcus," Vance said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "I'll handle it. Elara, come with me." He led her out of the office, leaving a surprised Marcus standing alone. He didn't speak until they were back in his private study. "Pay my nephew no mind," Vance said, his back to her once more. "His ambition far exceeds his character." He seemed to dismiss the incident entirely. "We have more important things to do. The storage company has located a unit rented in your mother's name 25 years ago. The contents of her old apartment. I want you to go through it. See if you can find anything. A birth certificate, a journal, anything with your father's name on it." The abrupt change of subject was jarring, but Elara understood. This was the real work. And for the first time, she felt like she wasn't just a pawn, but a partner in his strange, obsessive quest. The storage unit was cold and smelled of dust and time. It was a 10 by 10-foot metal box, stacked high with cardboard boxes and furniture shrouded in white sheets like sleeping ghosts. This was the tomb of her mother's old life, a life before the illness, before Elara was born. Vance had sent her with a driver, but she was alone now, the heavy metal door rumbling shut behind her, sealing her in with the past. She started methodically, pulling down boxes labeled kitchen or linens, finding nothing but dusty plates and faded towels. It was heartbreaking work. These were the mundane artifacts of the vibrant, healthy woman she only knew from photographs. After hours of sorting, her hands grimy and her back aching, she found a small, unlabeled crate tucked away with a serious expression that couldn't quite contain the adoration in his eyes as he looked at Lena. It was, without a shadow of a doubt, a young Alistair Vance. A wave of vertigo washed over Elara. She sank to the floor, the cold concrete seeping through her jeans. It couldn't be. The cold, ruthless billionaire and her gentle, lost mother. She fumbled with the ribbon on the letters, her fingers clumsy. She unfolded the first one. The handwriting was bold and masculine. "My dearest Lena," it began. "Even a day away from you feels like a year. The city is grey without you in it. My father continues his campaign against us, but it doesn't matter. Nothing he says or does can change how I feel. That ring I gave you is a promise, not just of my love, but of the life we will build together, far away from his shadow. I will find a way for us, I swear it. Forever yours, Al. She read another, and then another. They were filled with passion, with promises, with plans for a future that never happened. He wrote about his tyrannical father, his disapproval of their relationship because Lena was from a family with no wealth or status. He wrote about his dream of them running away together, and in the last letter, there was a tone of desperation. He's sending me to London to oversee the new office. He says it's for a year. I know it's a ploy to separate us. Don't listen to anything he or his messengers tell you, Lena. Wait for me. I will write every day. I will come back for you. Ilara sat there, surrounded by the ghosts of a life her mother had never spoken of. The truth laid bare in faded ink. Alistair Vance wasn't just some stranger obsessed with a piece of jewelry. He was Al. And if these letters were true, he was her father. The thought was a cataclysm, shattering the very foundation of her identity. Anger, hot and sharp, pierced through her shock. If he was her father, where had he been for 27 years? Why had he abandoned them to a life of poverty and struggle? The love in the letters felt like a lie, a cruel composure finally cracking. He reached for it with a hand that trembled, his fingers stroking the image of Lena's smiling face. A choked sound escaped his throat. "Lena," he whispered, the name a prayer and a curse. "Why?" Ilara demanded, the single word loaded with a lifetime of pain. "Why did you leave her? Why did you abandon us?" Before Vance could answer, the door swung open, and Marcus Thorne entered, his usual smirk firmly in place. "Uncle, I was just coming to—" "Well, well, what have we here? A trip down memory lane?" His eyes darted to the box, a flicker of something unreadable in his gaze. He saw the letters, and his smirk widened. He ignored Vance and turned his full attention to Ilara. "So, you found the old love letters. How touching. I hope you're not getting any grand ideas, little waitress." He stepped closer, lowering his voice into a conspiratorial whisper. "He's not the man you think he is. That man in those letters doesn't exist anymore. He was destroyed by his father, and now he destroys everything he touches. He'll break your heart, just like he broke your mother's." Marcus then put a hand on her arm, his touch proprietary and chilling. "But I can help you. That little box is worth a lot, not just emotionally. I'll give you $5 million, cash. You take that box, you disappear, and you never contact my uncle again. Consider it a severance package for a job well done. You can give your mother the best care in the world and live a life of comfort. It's more than he would ever give you freely." It was a test, a blatant, cynical bribe. Everything in her screamed to take it. The money was a fantasy, an escape from every worry she'd ever had. She could walk away from this confusing, painful history and be secure forever. But then she looked at the photograph, at her mother's radiant face, full of love and trust. And she looked at Vance, who was watching her, his expression a mixture of agony and suspense. He wasn't assets or liabilities. Your mother was the greatest joy of my life, but to him she was a liability. A girl with no name, no money, unworthy of the Vance dynasty. He walked to the window, staring down at the city. He forbade me from seeing her. I refused. I gave her that ring. I carved it myself from a piece of silver. I told her it was a promise. Then my father sent me to London. He said it was for business, but I knew it was to separate us. I wrote to her every single day. I poured my heart out, begging her to wait for me. He paused, his voice breaking. But I never received a single letter in return. After 3 months, a letter arrived from my father. It included a wedding announcement from a small-town paper. Lena Hayes had married another man. Elara felt a chill run down her spine. She never married anyone else. "I know that now," he said, his voice thick with self-loathing. The announcement was a fabrication, forged by my father. He had his people intercept my letters to her and hers to me. My brother, Marcus's father, was his right-hand man. He told Lena that I had met someone else in London, a woman from a prominent family, and that I was engaged. He told her I wanted the ring back. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. A lie to shatter 2 hearts, engineered by a man obsessed with control. "I believed him," Alistair confessed, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "I was young, and he had spent my whole life teaching me that everyone could be bought, that love was a transaction. I thought she had chosen security over me. It broke me. The man I was, the one who wrote those letters, he died in that London flat. I came back a year later and buried myself in the company. I became my father, cold, empty. I never loved anyone again." He turned to face her, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I never knew he was hiding a child. My child. I swear to you, Elara, I never knew you existed." The confession hung in the air, the truth so monumental it reshaped the world. He wasn't a monster who had abandoned the meeting. Marcus was there, looking smug, assuming it was about a corporate matter. Elara sat beside Alistair, a silent partner. "Marcus," Alistair began, his voice dangerously calm, "we need to discuss a matter of family history." Marcus's smile tightened. "I'm not sure this is the time or place, Uncle." "I think it is," Alistair said, sliding a folder across the vast table. "These are copies of intercepted letters, and this," he added, placing a small, leather-bound ledger beside it, "is your father's private account book from that year. It details payments made to a postal worker in your mother's hometown, and a payment to a printer for a custom announcement. My father was meticulous." Marcus went pale. He looked from the documents to Elara, then to Alistair, his composure shattering. "This is insane. She's a gold digger who found some old letters. She's playing you." "Resisting? Is she?" Alistair countered, his voice like ice. "Or have you been playing me for the last 10 years, since your father told you the truth? You knew I had a daughter. You knew the great lie of my life, and you let me believe it, all to protect your position." Cornered, Marcus's panic morphed into arrogant rage. "And what if I did?" he sneered, his true nature finally exposed. "You think she deserves any of this? A waitress, she's nobody. The Vance legacy belongs to me. I'm the one who's worked for it, who's earned it. I did what I had to do to protect my family. Our family." "She is my family," Alistair said, the words echoing with finality. He stood up, towering over his nephew. "And you are no longer a part of it. You're fired. Your shares will be frozen. Security will escort you from the building. If you ever try to contact me or my daughter again, I will use every resource at my disposal to ruin you." Marcus stared, his face a mask of disbelief and hatred. He looked at Elara one last time, his eyes full of venom, before security guards entered and quietly, efficiently, removed him from the room, from the company, and from their lives for She didn't recognize Alistair, the great love of her life. But when he knelt beside her chair and gently took her hand, she didn't pull away. Elara stood behind them, her hand on her father's shoulder. A new, fragile family forged from the ashes of a decades-old tragedy. The circle was, at last, complete. 6 months later, the city no longer looked so intimidating from a penthouse window. Ilara had found her footing, not as a corporate heiress, but as the passionate head of the foundation. She was making a real difference, honoring her mother in a way she had never dreamed possible. The grief for the mother she was losing was still there, but now it was balanced by a sense of purpose. She and Alistair were still learning how to be a family. Their relationship was quiet, built on shared meals and tentative conversations about the years they had lost. One evening, he found her in the office, staring at the old photograph of him and her mother. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice soft. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there to see you grow up." Ilara turned and gave him a small, genuine smile. "You're here now," she said. "That's what matters." They weren't erasing the past, but they were building a future, one day at a time. The pain had not vanished, but it had made room for hope. A simple silver ring had not just uncovered a secret, it had brought a father home and given a daughter back her history. For in the end, the greatest fortunes are not measured in dollars, but in the love we thought was lost, and the connections we fight to reclaim. If this story of love, loss, and reunion touched your heart, and reminded you that truth and family are the most precious treasures of all, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that inspire hope. Your support helps us continue to share tales that celebrate the enduring strength of the human spirit. What hidden connections, after all, might be waiting in your own past, ready to change your future?